Hi, I'm Murray Feldman with Eric Liu, founder and CEO of Citizen University in Seattle, really the university promoting power, citizen power.
That's all our work. We're a nonprofit organization. We work all around the United States, and all our work is about teaching powerful citizenship, what it takes, what the values are that are underneath it, and what the skills are to be able to make a difference in your community.
And when we talk about making a difference, Eric, in our community, we're talking about making sure that people have what they need to survive. And I'm talking about the minimum wage. You've been very active in that. You've been very outspoken on that. The minimum wage is not just about money, though, is it?
Well, no, and let me just say, Citizen University itself is not working on the minimum wage, but in my own life as a citizen of Seattle, I was very involved in making Seattle one of the first cities in the country to adopt a $15 minimum wage. And the case we made for that was fundamentally, I would say this. The way that happened was a story of citizen power and bottom-up people power. Low-wage workers allying with businesses, allying with people who were wanting to make a more inclusive economy, organizing to change the frame of the possible. That happened. But the case that we made for $15 was not a case of charity or kindness or compassion. It was a case that was about, this is going to be great for business, because when workers have more money, businesses have more customers, and we will create an increasing cycle of growing demand, right? And that storytelling is central in any kind of citizen action.
In order to do that, you had to have that bottom-up people power, so to speak. You had to be organized. You had to have citizens out there acting and reacting.
Yeah, one of the things that was important about the $15 story is that it didn't begin with high-powered organizers or elected leaders. It began with low-wage workers in the airport and hospitality industry in the town of SeaTac, which is next door to Seattle, and it's where the airport is. And these folks organized to start pushing for a $15 minimum wage. People who were cleaning bathrooms in the hotel, running the rental car operation, baggage handlers, who decided, you know what, we work hard for a living and we don't live on what we earn. And we believe that something different is possible. So as they organized and got a ballot measure to pass in their small town of SeaTac, they then completely set in motion a domino effect, so that Seattle started looking at this and saying, and said, it is possible here as well to activate and organize folks in a new way to change the story and the equation of power around the minimum wage.
Being an active citizen can really have a financial goal, and it can help us out financially. How do we start with that?
Look, I think there's actually a great correlation between financial literacy and civic literacy. Financial literacy is about, do you understand how the economy works, how the market works? Do you know the difference between stocks and bonds? Do you know what it means to invest? Civic literacy is, do you understand how we decide things together? Do you understand how government operates? Do you understand the ways in which that there's no such thing as not voting? Because when you don't vote, all you're doing is handing your power over to somebody else to use against you. These forms of literacy are fundamentally about making sure that we deliver on the American promise, which is that each of us gets to pursue opportunity in the fullest way, equal to our talents and our ambitions. In the economic sphere, you need to understand finances and the market to do that. In the civic sphere, you need to understand power, democracy, and the workings of government to do that.
Each of us has power within us, if we choose to use it.
Well, each of us has power individually, but the focus of our work at Citizen University is reminding us of the cooperative, collective nature of power. We're living in a time right now where across the left and the right on all kinds of issues, people are rising up to push back against rigged games. That's the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street. That's Black Lives Matter. It's Me Too. All these different movements. Some of them are really super organized. Some of them are completely organic. But what they're all doing is saying, we reject the status quo. We reject this hierarchy that says this is how things ought to be. We believe something different is possible. And when you have this kind of moment like this right now, it becomes incumbent upon all of us to think, okay, beyond just pushing back, once I've said, okay, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore, what are you then going to do? Do you know who decides? Do you know who decides on your retirement policy? Do you know who decides on health care? Do you know who decides whether this school should shut down or that school should shut down? Do you know who decides anything in public life, whether economic or civic? If you don't, then you're not in the game. You're the ball. You're being kicked around, right? And so getting literate in power means understanding who decides.
And when you talk about the word rigged, What you're talking about is that there's a lot of power, and nobody often challenges the power.
Well, I mean, let's start with the economics of it. We live in a country right now where 95% of the gains of the recovery since the Great Recession have accrued to the top 1%. We live in a country where that top 1% in 1980 accounted for 8% of national income. Today, over 20% of national income, right? More and more of the lifeblood and the wealth of this country is going into fewer and fewer hands. That's a rigged game. That's not, people didn't vote and say, yeah, that's what we want. We want just a small number of people to have all the clout and all the money and to lord it over us. That happened because in the way that financial institutions operate, in the way that the economy is or isn't regulated, in the way in which worker power and unions have been hobbled and disabled over decades, the game has gotten rigged. And so we're in a time right now where people are wanting to re-rig that game.
Re-rig that game means organizing. It means using your collective power. Let's bring it to finances. What about shareholders?
So I think this is a really important thing in thinking about the role of shareholders. Anybody who is a shareholder is, in theory, there is shareholder democracy. Shareholders get to vote and so on and so forth. But in practice, not only the practice of proxies, but in practice, because many people who are shareholders do so through mutual funds, where you're just getting an aggregated bundle of shares and you're not even sure what's in there. The fact is right now that we've got to change our mindset. If you're a shareholder, or forget if even you're a shareholder, if you're a consumer in our economy, you've got to be thinking of yourself not just as an atomized, isolated individual. You've got to think of yourself as someone in a network of other shareholders, other consumers. We've got to start finding each other and finding our voice together and saying, hey, if we're all shareholders in Company X, and Company X is paying its CEO 500 times the average worker pay, we've got to organize to push back against that. If we are shareholders in Company Y, and Company Y is treating its workers really poorly, we've got to say something about that, because it's not just that we're wanting return on our investment as shareholders. We want to use that leverage to say, how can we build an economy in which we're all better off when we're all better off? One that is inclusive for everybody and allows for the possibility of prosperity for everybody. That's shareholder power properly used.
And that all comes back, Eric, to where we began, talking about the minimum wage and the efforts in Greater Seattle to change that system.
Well, it started in Greater Seattle, but you'll notice that it's spreading like a wonderful wave across the country, and not just in bright blue cities on the coasts. You have Nebraska raising their minimum wage. You got St. Louis raising their minimum wage. And you have fights that go on and on where some cities raise the wage and then the state comes in and preempts and knocks it back. It's not that the minimum wage solves everything, and it's not that even getting the minimum wage is a permanent victory. But what this fight is, the fight for 15, is an indication of a larger trend in our society of people saying, we can imagine better, we demand better, we're going to start organizing for better. And again, to do this in a way that is not about trying to knock down capitalism, but to say, to make capitalism work, the only way that capitalism works in a sustained way for everybody is if the wealth and the power are not hoarded by a few. If power and wealth and opportunity are circulated widely in an economy, then we are all better off and we're all better off. And that's the spirit behind the fight for 15.
Eric Liu, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
If you'd like more information on financial education, I hope you'll visit wi65.org.